So I decided to do a, I guess, comparison review of a really popular album, be it nostalgic or something new to certain listeners. Megadeth, Peace Sells, But Who's Buying? I believe came out like in 1980. I want to say 1987 or 86. I forget the exact year. But since then, it's been remastered twice, at least on a large scale. I don't know if it's been remastered since then, before now. What I mean by that is, so when an album gets made in the studio and everything's done being recorded, all the tracks and everything, it goes to the mastering where they set up the tracks and what order they want them, and how they're EQ'd and how they blend, and if they fade out, or if they wrap up with like a traditional ending, where the drums and the guitar, end the song instead of fading out like a lot of pop songs do. Anyways, so what we have here, we have an original CD release, and of course I'm only doing CDs, not vinyl or anything. An original CD release of Peace Sells. There's a booklet, same as the back. Okay, so if you awesome, if you kind of grew up listening to Megadeth at all in the late 80s, early 90s, then you're already really familiar with their work. If you kind of got into them in the late 90s or 2000s, you may be less familiar with them because there's already so much out there that captured the attention of the people by then. A lot of new metal bands and everything. So a lot of 80s thrash metal kind of got pushed to the side. I mean, the big four, even as strong as they were, I think Metallica had the best popularity through, the dark years of metal or rock, however you want to look at it. Certainly Anthrax probably got sent to the bottom, monetarily speaking. I don't know what the balance between Slayer and Megadeth was record sales wise, but they were both still touring, both still putting out records. But anyways, back to the subject of the video. So what we have here, like I said, are 3 versions of Peace Sells, all CDs. So you got, what I have right here is, first is original. If you went ahead and already listened to this anytime recently, it has a certain sound to it, not taking into account the vocals or the guitars or drums. It sounds like a loud record. But if you compare it to Rest in Peace, this actually seems louder, just like as total volume is concerned. It's not as loud as Countdown to Extinction. And again, I'm not comparing the musical qualities of the albums to those other albums. I'm comparing the actual overall volume. It's like when you're watching TV and you get a commercial that was just really loud, and you're like, damn, you got to turn it down a few notches. That's what I mean. So it's definitely louder than Rest in Peace originally, and not as loud as Countdown to Extinction. Somewhere in the early mid 2000s, Dave Mustaine said that he was going to remaster his original albums because he was just unhappy with the way they turned out. I don't know if he really wasn't happy or he just wanted to go back and do something that he was unable to do, or get a, I don't know how to put it, like a leg up on what he intended. Because of course at the time he was just the musician, and he maybe had been an assistant producer, but the record companies had their sound engineers and their recording studios, the things that he had to conform to at the time. Maybe he didn't like the cuts, maybe he didn't like certain parts, and he thought that he would go back and do them what he would consider the right way or his way. And if you listen to this version, there's a lot of weird telltale signs that at the very least, it was tampered with, clearly by his blessing, or he was there in the studio when they were messing with it. Some solos are kind of pulled back in the mix. So it's really hard to enjoy this one if you're already very familiar with the original one. Now, I don't have like a super good memory to tell you all the tracks that seem to suffer from this, but then you even got extra tracks of the same songs. They're called a Randy Burns mix. Apparently Randy Burns was the producer on this album. I wikied him and see if I could find any other stuff that he worked on, and I didn't find it. So if you know of any other albums he worked on, go ahead and leave a comment or a link to stuff that he actually either led on or assisted on. But either way, you listen to the original 8 tracks, they just sound, they don't sound just, they sound clean, a lot cleaner than the original album. But you can hear where stuff is blended back and forward, and some stuff pops and some stuff seems really soft. So I mean, this isn't the go-to album if this is the only one you have. I'd really suggest picking an original one up on eBay for like $5 or $6. It's really worth it just to hear the whole thing as it was. And maybe it's not what Dave Mustaine would have wanted or does want, but it's, you know, a part of musical history. And I mean, sometimes things are the way they are, and for better or worse, that's how we remember them. This is just a kind of cool, like, oh, look, he got to get on the control panel and you know, dictate how he wanted things to come out. But it's really not something that is a go-to version of the album. And it just kind of ruins the flow with having the extra tracks. I mean, I know a lot of people don't listen to CDs anymore. They buy the MP3s, or they'll put the CD in some sort of computer or wherever they rip it to and listen to the MP3 that way. But you're still stuck with, you know, extra tracks on an 8-track album that's like 38 minutes long or something to that effect. But here is the 25th anniversary of Rust in Peace. Now, I just got this just to have it as part of my Megadeth collection. I don't have an extensive Megadeth collection, but I have all the American versions, some of the remastered, and some Japanese versions. But anyways, the point is, I had gotten this, and I really wasn't super stoked about it, other than just having it for, you know, just to say, oh, I have it. This is a 2-disc gatefold. It has the original album. I shouldn't have done that, but it has the original album and it has a live album. And I don't know exactly where the album, it's a live album from the Fantasy Theater in Cleveland from 1987. And it has all the songs, it seems, from Peace Sells and from Killing Is My Business. I haven't listened to this yet. My main interest was Peace Sells. It is not the 2004 remastered version. It is very close to the original studio version that was released originally, but it seems to be EQ'd a little differently, and by a little differently, I mean it seems better. It seems very, very crisp. It has a different booklet, and I think the intro of the booklet is possibly written, I don't want to get it wrong, yeah, by Lars Ulrich, the drummer from Metallica. I know I don't really like to say that whole thing, but maybe some people are unfamiliar with him. It's an interesting read. It kind of goes into him, what he says, you know, listening to it as it came out and being really happy with Dave, you know, doing something different. He said he liked it. Maybe gushes a little bit, but I don't know how sincere that is or how sincere it's not. Then you have like a little forward from Dave himself right there, and some producer's notes from Dennis Wolf, which I am also unfamiliar with. Like, this is not clearly the booklet that came with the original album. This is a picture that's not found in the original album, and I believe it's not found in the remasters either. There's Chris Pullen and Gar on each side of Dave. Here's another shot. And if you're familiar with the equipment that Dave Mustaine used, his is, I believe, is a Jackson Flying V, even though you cannot see the headstock. And that's his megadeth logo on his guitar. Now those look like covered pickups, and it's a Kaler bridge, if anybody's concerned or familiar with the gear that he used back in the day. But those covered pickups may be one of two things. They just are covers, or they could have been EMGs. Dave went through a lot of gear before he finally settled on Seymour Duncan JBs at the time, and his Jackson guitars. There's actually a few pictures of him having gosh, what is it, Lawrence or Lawler pickups in the bridge of his guitar. The point is, reason I bring it up is because if you listen from all his albums, from Killing Is My Business up until Rest in Peace, there are some telltale signs that different gear may have been used guitar wise and clearly amplifier wise, and which is why things sound a little different. From Countdown to Extinction all the way until Risk, for sure, he pretty much stuck with the same gear. So even though the albums are sonically different, the sound of the guitars, his guitar for sure, it is very similar across all those albums. So if you're interested and you kind of, I hate to say throw away money, you can buy the 2004 remastered version just to hear for yourself why it's not as good as the original or the remaster. If you haven't heard if you haven't heard this at all, I would just recommend go ahead and getting the 25th anniversary. It's mixed really well. It doesn't seem like any of the guitar parts, drum parts are tampered with. The drums pop a lot more. But if you're not a fan of this style of music, then it's not really going to change your mind. But if you like sonic purity as much as you can, and you don't have like a record player to get the original, this originally on vinyl, I would really suggest listening to this, getting your hands on it. There's actually a bigger version of this. I think it comes with like 2 or 3 vinyl records and the CDs and all this, extra swag. But it's a lot more expensive too, and I think they're out of print, and people are clearly selling them for a premium price. So you can probably still get this for like $20 on Amazon or eBay. So if you like this like general review and general comparison, I'd appreciate a thumbs up or any comment. I'd like to do more of these in the future. It won't just be Megadeth. I have plans to do maybe some Buckethead, some Alice in Chains, or whatever else. I have my collection. I have multiple copies or multiple mixes or different variations. But again, hey, thanks for watching this video. If you do, I appreciate it. And if you want to go ahead and subscribe, the more subscribers I get, I'll try and make some more videos and maybe work on a podcast or something. I intend this to be more just about the albums and the music, and not to get all I hate this or I liked it or I like that or whatever the case may be. So you let me know if you enjoyed it. What would you have wanted to hear more about, or whatever is album related. Thanks a lot.